welcome to this explainer. If you've spent any time researching how to actually withdraw your money in early retirement, you've probably been told that the famous three-bucket strategy is an absolute must. But today, we're doing a massive reality check. We're going to dive into why this widely accepted approach might actually be a mathematical trap that literally robs you of your peace of mind. And we'll look at a mathematically superior alternative, the total return strategy. Let's get right into it. Okay, so almost every financial expert out there insists on strict cash buckets for retirement, right? They say it's the absolute only way to protect your hard-earned nest egg from market crashes. But let's take a step back for a second. We really need to question if that's actually the safest approach when reality hits, or are we just blindly following a rule that might end up doing way more harm than good? So let's start with section 1, the three-bucket illusion. To set the stage, let's look at Jason from the Two Sides of FI channel. Early in his retirement, he used this exact bucket strategy to fight off sequence of returns risk. That terrifying fear of the market tanking right after you quit your job. And the pitch? It sounds incredibly safe. Bucket 1 holds cash for your immediate expenses. Bucket 2 holds bonds to refill that cash. And Bucket 3 is all your stocks for long-term growth. The promise is that if the market crashes, you just live off your cash and bonds, and you literally never have to sell your stocks at a loss. Sounds perfect, doesn't it? Well, renowned FIRE mathematician Karsten Jeske, better known as Big Earn, brutally calls this out. He debated this topic and his conclusion was crystal clear. Mathematically, it doesn't actually save you. He calls the bucket strategy essentially just window dressing. Like, sure, it might make you feel warm and fuzzy inside, but it's really just masking the reality of how a traditional withdrawal approach actually works. Which brings us to section 2, when the buckets break. Here is the terrifying flaw in the system. Have you ever noticed that during a severe market crash, stocks and bonds often drop at the exact same time? So if Bucket 2 and Bucket 3 are bleeding simultaneously, which bucket are you supposed to pull from? The math suddenly makes your head spin because these rigid bucket rules just don't account for reality. And this perfectly illustrates the disconnect. The idea of perfect safety corners you. In reality, you might end up hoarding way too much cash out of pure fear. And that creates a massive cash drag where inflation just quietly eats away your spending power. Or worse, it absolutely drives you crazy trying to manually move money from Bucket 3 down to 2 and then into 1 every single time the market twitches. Get this. In a recent Q&A, Jason was asked why he ended up selling assets during a bear market to refill his cash bucket. The strategy is supposed to prevent exactly that. Well, Jason admitted he abandoned the system entirely. When the market took a hit, bonds and stocks were both down together. Ironically, he ended up having to sell bonds while they were down anyway, just to refill his cash. Life and market correlations simply don't always cooperate with neatly labeled buckets. Think about it. If you're strictly following these rules, doing this manual shuffling every single month for a 40-year retirement, you really have to ask yourself a brutal question. Did you achieve financial freedom? Or did you just give yourself a highly stressful, unpaid job as a full-time portfolio manager? So, how do we escape this trap? Let's move to section 3, the total return perspective. Instead of juggling 3 separate, stressful piles, Jason transitioned to treating his portfolio as one holistic engine. He set up a beautifully simple, strict asset allocation, 70% equities and 30% fixed income. That's it. But the real secret weapon that makes this work? Writing an investment policy statement, or IPS. An IPS is a physical document where you dictate exactly how you're going to manage your money long before fear ever has a chance to set in. It's basically a financial superpower. When the market crashes, you don't panic. You just look at the document. It literally strips the emotion right out of the equation. Now, the key to making this mindset shift stick is understanding the word fungible. Basically, $1 in your brokerage account spends exactly the same as $1 in your IRA. When you realize all your money is just one big fungible pool, you completely stop stressing over imaginary bucket labels. So, what does this look like in practice? Jason simplified his life down to a single operating account that acts as his paycheck. He keeps a 2-year cash buffer in it, with half in immediately liquid money market funds and the other half in T-bills and CDs. He doesn't need a massive bloated emergency fund on top of that, and he definitely doesn't need to constantly shuffle money between imaginary buckets anymore. All right, let's jump to section 4, automating your withdrawals. If we aren't using buckets, how do we actually get the cash to live on without panicking? The answer is scheduled rebalancing.
Because Jason has his IPS, he isn't checking his portfolio every day or even every month. He just checks his accounts and rebalances twice a year, specifically in May and November.
When May or November rolls around, the process is incredibly straightforward. He looks at his 70-30 target. If stocks have had a massive run-up, he sells stocks to get back to 70%. If stocks are down, he sells bonds. He completely ignores the news cycle, market conditions, and the fear. He simply sells whichever asset is up to get back to his target, and uses those exact proceeds to refill his 2-year cash operating account. And honestly, this approach is so mathematically sound that even after selling bonds during a bear market to refill his cash, his portfolio still ended up around 9% for the year, and that is net of his withdrawals. No way, right? But by automating this process, you eliminate decision fatigue entirely. There's no guessing, you just follow the math twice a year.
Finally, let's look at our takeaways in Section 5, Peace over Complexity.
Look, if the 3-bucket strategy genuinely helps you sleep better at night and stops you from panic selling your index funds during a crash, then by all means use it. Personal finance is deeply personal. But remember that while buckets provide a comforting psychological crutch, they come with a heavy administrative burden. Do not let anyone convince you it's a mathematical requirement over the automated decision-free simplicity of the total return perspective. At the end of the day, financial independence is really about reclaiming your time. By zooming out, embracing a total return perspective, defining your asset allocation in an IPS, and strictly rebalancing on a set schedule, you build an incredibly robust system. It gives you back your absolute most valuable asset, your time. So you can actually, enjoy your early retirement. I want to leave you with one final thought to reflect on today. Complexity often masquerades as safety. So ask yourself, are you managing your wealth in retirement, or is your complex withdrawal strategy managing you? Protect your peace of mind, simplify your systems, and take back control of your freedom.